Hello from my still patchy room. On this week's Substack, I have written an essay about discipline being the cause of calm. And I thought I would expand on that in this video of just maybe give you some really specific examples of things that I do that I think set me up every week, every month, every season, whatever it might be, for just a much calmer week. You know, I can't control when things change, and I'm learning to be okay with that. But I can do things that I know will make the entire week easier. I wrote in the essay that something I am reminding myself is that routine is not about control. It's not about sort of white knuckling it through as if nothing could possibly change, but it's instead about containment. It is giving you healthy parameters to actually get what you want out of your week or your day. Brianna Weist writes in that excellent collection of essays, 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think. She writes about making sure that our days are governed by our conscious decisions, not by our impulses. And I think for a long time I worked with a lot of creatives and really absorbed this kind of black or white picture of discipline. You know, you're either absolutely militant about things, which tends to be the end of the spectrum that I sit on, or you just want to go with the flow and see what happens, and that's sort of the other end of the spectrum. And I think that neither of those works, because either you end up just continuously failing because life is not perfectly organized and structured, and every day has little or big surprises that can throw things off. But then the other end of the spectrum doesn't work either, because I think you actually can't accomplish anything if you are just waiting for the mood to strike. And if you're not putting containment around the things that you say are important to you, they will fall off the list over and over and over again. So I have anchors, I suppose I would call them, that I do. Mostly these are weekly anchors, and they don't take that much time, but the dividends are enormous. So I thought I would run you through 3 or 4 of those sort of anchor activities that I do each week. And they might spark some of your own. You definitely don't need to do things the way that I do them, but I think that if I explain to you what calmness they create in my week, it might convince you that it's something you would like in your week. So the first anchor is about money. Money has been a huge source of anxiety for me for lots of reasons. I've never in my entire career had a full-time permanent job. So I have always had financial instability, and that, saying that out loud, really surprises me, because I am an absolute control freak. That why would I not have done that? But I guess there are other parts of my personality that overshadow even my need for financial stability. I, once a week, sit down and just do a review of what is in each of our bank accounts. I do a review, I see where all of our money is at, and then from there my partner and I kind of set priorities of what are we spending money on in the next month or so. Is there anything that's coming up as a bill, like car registration or a car service? Cars, it's always cars, right? Is there anything coming up that we need to prioritize? Anything unexpected especially. We put aside money all the time, just automated, for things that we know will come up, but if there's anything unexpected. And then another big, I guess, ongoing project is our house. So what are we prioritizing for this month with money, but also just time? So what are the projects at the house, and what are those things going to cost? And we always try and do a few wins that will not cost money. It might just be a weekend sort of working bee, and then there are maybe a piece of furniture or something that we want to find and invest in that month, or you know, whatever it might be, upcoming expense. Then it's just assigning any tasks that need to get done, agreeing who's going to do what, and that's it. Like it could be maybe 15 minutes. We do it over coffee. And then maybe monthly or every 6 weeks or so, there tends to be enough to warrant a slightly longer meeting, a slightly longer money meeting of where we do a more in-depth review. We make sure that all of our floats are as they should be. There's no overspending in any particular area. Just a kind of a slightly deeper look into it. But mostly on a week-to-week basis, it's very quick. It's just making sure that things are tracking as they should be financially. We're accounting for anything that we want to be spending additional money on. And that there's always just little admin tasks. So just assigning those and getting those done. That's it. That's the money anchor. But for me, it has created so much calmness over money. It also shares the burden or the responsibilities of who's thinking about these things. For a long time, it was just me because I was the one who was like obsessed. And then that sort of just self-perpetuates, and then it was just my job. Whereas now it's definitely it's just something that we share. It's really just trying to set a few parameters of budgets and just keep things moving in the direction that we have chosen. So I would say that is one of the anchors that has really, really helped create calmness around money, is just each week looking at it for 10 to 15 minutes with my partner and making decisions and then moving on. The next thing for me would be about health. So there's two probably anchors that I'll talk about with health. The first one will be my gym program. So I work on a 6-weekly gym program, and I have set that up. I set some goals, and then I kind of just, what I am trying to do is stop getting 3 weeks in, getting bored and changing things, or 2 weeks in, let's be honest. So what I'm trying to do is work on 6 weeks at a time. This is the program. Each week you should be progressively overloading in that I try and lift a bit heavier or lift a bit more. And I try and get 8,000 steps in every single day. And kind of that's it, like that. I don't overcomplicate it further than that. I don't know about you, but on Instagram I'm always seeing, a new exercise that's amazing for glutes that you should try. Or, this is the new health fad and you absolutely now need to add skipping in every single day or whatever. Like I hear these things all the time, and I used to just get distracted by them because it made me feel probably more productive. But now I am just trying to do my 6-week program, which is the same, it's 4 days, it's a 4-day split, and I just do those every week. And then in 6 weeks time, if I want to incorporate one of the cool new exercises I see on Instagram, then I can do it then. But I've probably forgotten about it or decided it's silly because honestly, most of the same lifts I think have worked for a very long time and we don't need to overcomplicate it. And then the other sort of health anchor that is, I think, a game changer is just weekly meal planning. It is so basic. Sitting down once a week and planning out at least 5 meals and working out, okay, this person is out of the house on this night, or something's on that night, so we'll be eating a bit later, or we need to eat earlier, or whatever, and just like laying that out and going, okay, these are the dinners mostly. We always try and have frozen lunches ready in the freezer, and then we have those on days where there aren't leftovers from the dinner the night before. And then breakfast, I try and keep really simple. I have, the same 2 or 3 breakfasts just on repeat, and I change that when the weather changes sufficiently that I don't feel like that anymore. But really, sitting down and going, these are at least the next 5 meals, the next 5 dinners, I should say, and coming up with a big grocery list and shopping for everything that you can. I understand you maybe not want to get fish for 4 days in advance, but knowing that on that day somebody needs to go and get fish, it makes things so much simpler, because I think everyone has that anxiety of what's for dinner tonight. Even if you love food, even if you love to cook, it is draining to come up every day with something to have for dinner. On a Sunday we go to the farmer's market and get all the produce that we need, and then on to the butcher, etc, etc. And then we are just set up for the week, and we don't have to think every single day about what's for dinner. And then two things that I do sort of more generally in the lifestyle category, I guess, would be my 6-week study sprints, which I've talked about in another video, and I set that up in advance, and then each week I've just got basically homework to follow. I feel that totally keeps me on track. I find that very enjoyable. 6 weeks is also long enough that by maybe week 4 or 5, I'm starting to think about what I want to do next, and that's fine because then I've only got 2 weeks left to just finish this and then move on to the next thing. One of my previous videos will be about that, and I'll pop the link below. And the other thing that I am starting to do is try and get more disciplined but also creative and have fun with my wardrobe. Now that I'm in Toowoomba, not in Brisbane, I will actually have a seasonal wardrobe, which is very exciting. It's not just summer, 10 months of the year, with a couple of cooler months. So Toowoomba actually gets very, very properly cold and is renowned for its seasons, which is one of the things I love about it. And so I am having fun at the moment planning out my sort of autumn, winter wardrobe. So the way that I do it is I come up with kind of outfit formulas of the outfits that I need the most. So in reality, I need far more outfits for working from home and having Zoom meetings than I do for going to black tie events. But working out, okay, what are the clothes that I actually need to wear the most? What do I already have that I will incorporate into that? And then going, okay, there are some key pieces that I am missing. Either they're too worn out from previous seasons, or I live in a very different climate now. So from there, kind of doing a bit of a shopping list and then actually sourcing some different pieces. So I have found that very fun. It's a kind of lovely, creative, rainy weekend exercise. And it now means that I have a targeted shopping list, and no, I'm not just going to the shops and spending thousands of dollars to stock up an entire wardrobe. It is something that I will work on and build. But I do know that there are some pieces that will make the most amount of difference if I incorporate those early, so they become the priorities. And that will be a mix of vintage pieces, op shop pieces, and new pieces from, you know, various levels of shops, probably in Brisbane, let's be honest. And so that's a fun one, but it also, I think, is good for money management. So it's good for the budget, but it's just to kind of keep you on track and make sure you're not just buying a bunch of random stuff. Over the years, I've worked more and more by myself, and I've sort of just become a bit lazy with how I dress, and I'm feeling the effect of just that lack of inspiration of my own, you know, just the way that I look every day. I enjoy getting dressed. I enjoy thinking of outfits. So I'm looking forward to bringing that into my life over the next few months. Of course, there are many more anchors and tools and tricks and all of the rest of it, but I thought that that might give you a sense of what I mean when I talk about discipline bringing calm, and hopefully encourage you to, if it works for you, if you're interested, that maybe a couple of these could work in your week as well, and just help you with that, you know, some of your own pain points. What are things that you're constantly finding that just create unnecessary stress in your world, that you know that if you just took a little bit of time, it would alleviate a lot of that panic. Like for me, it was always the meal planning. Just having an idea ahead of time what we're going to have for dinner each day has just alleviated so much ridiculous stress. I'll see you in the next video where this room will be painted, and I'll show you some of the very exciting antique pieces I have acquired in the last couple of weeks, where this room will actually be furnished, as well as a few other pieces around the house. So that will all be in the next video. I'll see you there.